Would you be the jerk for refusing to cover your tattoos for your boyfriend's family dinner? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for telling my sister I won't be her maid of honor because she didn't come to my wedding due to her dog dying? So I, 28-year-old female, got married last year. It was a small but beautiful ceremony with our closest family and friends. My oldest sister, 32-year-old female, and I have always had a complicated relationship. We're close, but she's also extremely emotional and kind of dramatic. She was supposed to be my maid of honor. 2 days before my wedding, her 14-year-old dog passed away unexpectedly. I was obviously sympathetic, but she called me sobbing, saying she couldn't emotionally handle coming to the wedding because she was too devastated. I tried to talk her down, even offered to have someone bring her home early if it was too much, but she refused and didn't show up. It hurt a lot. She missed one of the biggest days of my life and I had no maid of honor. We didn't talk much after that. A few months ago, she got engaged and just last week asked me to be her maid of honor. I told her I couldn't. I said I still felt hurt that she missed my wedding, and while I love her, I just couldn't pretend like everything was fine. She got extremely upset, said I was being cold and petty and that her dog was like her child. Our parents are pressuring me to just be the bigger person. I honestly don't know anymore. Am I the jerk for saying no? Honestly, I feel like this kind of comes down to how much you truly appreciate pets and like how valid it is to have a high degree of hurt from losing them. It really is interesting because mentally to myself I'm saying, if it was a relative 2 days before their wedding they lost, you almost go, oh yeah, no, it's completely understandable they wouldn't be there. But then I do mentally say it's their pet and I'm like, well, they could probably still try to power through it, but I also fully recognize it hurts when you lose your pet. I feel pretty comfortable myself saying that OP is the jerk and that I feel like they're kind of acting in their own emotions a bit too much here. Their sister was clearly devastated over losing their dog and now OP's kind of willing to throw away their relationship or at least make it very contentious because of it. Yoo-hoo60 commented, if you're doing this out of spite, then you're the jerk. If you are sincerely declining because you don't want to uphold all the duties and obligations of being the maid of honor, then not the jerk. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for playing a voice recording to prove to my friend her daughter isn't nonverbal? So I, 30-year-old female, have a friend, 34-year-old female, that has a nonverbal daughter, 3-year-old female. Let's call her Allie. I watch her 4 days out of the week in my in-home daycare. I require contracts for every child and she never filled out the special needs section. And at no point when she asked me to take Allie did she mention any type of speech delay or non-speaking issue. Although Allie didn't speak much at first, I figured she was shy, she communicated her needs to me very well and said small things to me frequently. Last month, I was in the bathroom. I keep the door barely cracked with a wedge so I can listen for any dangers and they can't walk in on me or see me. She walked by and said, "Ew, you stinky." I laughed and told her mom I'd pick up what she said and I was met with, "She isn't verbal, why would you mock her?" I reassured her that Allie has spoken to me quite a few times and I thought that it was a huge milestone from when she first arrived and was barely saying anything. She told me that she didn't believe me and that it was messed up that I would make up something like that to upset her. I told her that I wasn't trying to upset her, but I wasn't lying either. I didn't press the issue further. Here's where I might be the jerk. I decided to record Allie, a voice recording, not her face, telling me her name and what her favorite animal is. I had full intention of showing mom the recording, but I was scared at first because of her blow up at me and I didn't know how she would react. After a few short pickups and drop-offs, she told me it was water under the bridge and that she didn't want to talk about it anymore. She even insisted that I went to the birthday party. After that, I was just happy Allie could continue and I ended up forgetting I had the recording at all. Fast forward to Friday, about a month later, she had a birthday party for her other child. At the party, I was socializing with other family members. Honestly, I'm a total idiot for forgetting that her family fully thought that she was nonverbal. I mentioned the funny things Allie said to me while we were reading an animal book. Turns out the person I was talking to was her sister, and she started yelling at me saying, "She is nonverbal, why are you lying?" Both her and her sister started berating me, saying that it's freaked up that I'm making this up about Allie being verbal. At this point, I'm tired of being called a liar. I have 2 disabled children whom my son was nonverbal for many years. I wouldn't lie about something like this. So while everybody was staring at me, I was scared and felt backed into a corner, so I, remembering I had the recording, decided to prove my case and play the voice recording. Everybody was shocked, and my friend told me to leave. I told her I didn't want to cause issues, but I'm not gonna be berated and called a liar. She said that I crossed the line recording her daughter and that I'm a jerk for embarrassing her at the party. Now I feel horrible and wondering if I should have just let it go. Edit for clarification and extra context. Whenever she would pick up and drop off, she wouldn't ask me much other than, how was her nap, how much did she eat, and I would hand her the daily report. Then she would leave and not stay for small talk even when I would try to initiate. I know people have busy lives, so I'm not going to try to make them stay and talk to me about their life story. I also didn't do the recording to embarrass her in any way. I didn't mean any vindication by it. I can admit I should have shown her immediately after I recorded it, but I'm also human and I was afraid of a second blow-up. Then after her saying it was water under the bridge, I was just happy that she wasn't going to take Allie away, so I put it in the back of my mind and forgot about it. I feel bad about how I went about my defense, hence the post. I know it was unprofessional and unethical. I apologized profusely to everybody at the party and the family as well. I will be putting cameras in my home that everybody will have access to, as well as updating all the contracts to let the parents know what's going to happen going forward. Peace of mind for everybody sounds good to me. Also, I will be making a call to CPS about the situation and see what they have to say. Thank you everybody for your kind words. You know, I hate to play conspiracy theory here, but wasn't there like a very notable case in the last few years about a parent who for years when their kid was growing up claimed that they were nonverbal or developmentally stunted or something like that, and it wasn't actually the case at all? I don't even necessarily want to go full like they're trying to keep their kid nonverbal for some kind of personal gain or sympathy. But like maybe even they're going too far in the direction of they are nonverbal and kind of accepting and boxing them into that corner rather than doing whatever it's taking and whatever OP's doing to help them get out of that. Fun Effective 6846 commented, "Not the jerk. I can't imagine what this child is going through being treated like she's completely nonverbal when that's not the case. In fact, I can't help but wonder if the way her mother seems to react may have a part to play in why she's not verbal around her mother. That being said, you did the right thing trying to bring this to the mother's attention in a polite and calm manner. Her reaction was unreasonably abrasive, as any parent of a nonverbal child would be over the moon to hear that the child is beginning to make progress. I don't think recording the child's voice was in the wrong. You weren't posting it all over the internet, you weren't going behind the mother's back and showing people the recording, and you only did it after she berated you for lying, which wasn't the case. You recorded the voice to specifically try and update the mother on her daughter's condition, as having that updated knowledge is important. I would normally say that it may have been a better option to ask permission to record the child's voice, but judging by the way you described the mother, I feel that probably would have just led to more conflict in the first place. ETA, also, she embarrassed you at the party, not the other way around. It's not your fault she feels embarrassed for not knowing her own kid better. OP responded commenting, "Unfortunately, I use the term friend loosely. I used to work at the daycare her daughter went to when she was a baby. I was the baby room lead teacher. I left the daycare about 2 years ago after dealing with other teachers trying to verbally or emotionally abuse the toddlers. I called the state on them and they told me to keep my mouth shut or I'll be fired, so I left. When she got wind that I had an in-home daycare about 2 months ago, she called and asked for a spot. Up until a month ago, she seemed nice and well put together, but now, I'm not so sure." Our next story is, am I the jerk for backing out of my friend's wedding after she invited the guy my partner cheated on me with? I, male 30, have been with my partner Liam, male 30, for over 10 years. Things are solid now, but about 6 years ago, Liam cheated on me. It was a one-time thing with a guy named Evan, someone he knew from school. I've never met Evan. He and I have no relationship. After it happened, Liam came clean immediately, cut ties with Evan, and has never repeated that mistake. It took a long time to rebuild trust, but we did. That period of our lives was extremely painful for me though. Now, on to the current issue. A friend of ours, let's call her Claire, female 29, is getting married in a few days. Liam and I are both in her wedding party. We've been very close friends with her for over 15 years. She knows about the situation between Liam and Evan. She knows how badly it hurt me. Here's the situation. Claire also knows Evan. She met him around 6 years ago through unrelated circumstances and became friends with him, mostly online from what I gather. She never talks about him around us. A month ago, while I was helping her with wedding stuff, she casually mentioned that Evan is invited to the wedding. I was stunned. When I asked her about it, she said she didn't tell us sooner because she didn't know how to handle it. Honestly, it sounded like she wasn't planning on telling us at all. It was such an offhanded comment. She said she didn't want to exclude someone who's been a good friend to her because of a situation that technically didn't involve her, as Evan isn't really out and she's not really supposed to know what happened. I get that it's her wedding, and I understand that she can invite whoever she wants. She pointed out that there will be 100+ people and that there's no reason we'd have to interact with Evan. But I still felt really disrespected by how she handled it, especially knowing everything that happened. After sitting with it, Liam and I decided to step down from the wedding party and not attend at all. We haven't spoken to Claire since. She seems to be acting like we overreacted and are being dramatic for backing out. Some people are saying we should just let it go for one day and show up anyway. Others are saying Claire crossed a line and this is a reasonable boundary. I think OP's completely fine to not go to the wedding if somebody's there that they don't want to be around is there. I feel like if OP was giving their friend a lot of grief about it, then OP would be the jerk, because the friend having the wedding has no skin in any of this drama. A catper commented, "My husband was married before we got together. After we were married for about 4 years, for some reason his family decided to invite his ex-wife to a party. I had never met her and had no desire to meet her, especially with several family members watching my reaction. My husband's family, however, decided it was time for me to meet her. That wasn't their call. I was pretty upset over the issue and told a coworker. She told me that I couldn't change their behavior, but I could change mine. It was my decision what I wanted to do. That was such an eye-opener for me. I told my husband that I wouldn't be going to the party, but he could go if he wanted. He went and I didn't, which was fine. It was so liberating to me to take back my own power. I have no idea what happened at the party. My husband and I never discussed it, but his family never invited his ex-wife again. You're not the jerk for deciding that going to his wedding would be too much for you. In fact, I salute you for standing your ground and taking your own power back." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not inviting my nephew to my son's birthday party? I, 35-year-old female, have a son, Killian, 14-year-old male, who just recently had a birthday. The issue stems from his birthday from last year, where we invited all his cousins and his friends to celebrate him. The party went great for the first half, but when it came time to cut the cake, I went over to the fridge to go get it and saw it was half eaten. I was obviously upset about this because this had been a cake that I had made by a professional baker that cost me around $140, and my son really loved the design. I asked who had ate the cake, and my sister, 44-year-old female, laughed it off when her son Robbie, 16-year-old male, told her that he ate the cake because he was hungry. To be clear, the cake wasn't the only food at the party. Throughout the party, we served many different dishes such as wings, veggie platters, pizzas, chips, and sodas. I was obviously angry that my son couldn't have his cake and had to quickly go out and buy one from Walmart. I'm honestly still shocked that with all the food at the party, Robbie still managed to clear half of a huge cake. It was enough to produce about 20 slices. I called my sister later to tell her I wasn't happy with what her son had done, and since I'd spent so much money on the cake, I expected it back. She then accused me of being fat-phobic, which absolutely is not true. I have never once discriminated against Robbie at any time. This was just a false accusation. To explain, Robbie has a weight problem and has been having issues with binging since he was around 13, which is why he's about 250 pounds. And my sister has never failed to let anyone know of that and expects for everyone to bend over backwards for Robbie since he has it hard. This year, Killian wanted to have a friends-only party with the exception of 2 cousins, one that only his friends and closest cousins could come to since he hated his party from last year. I asked why, and he explained to me that he was embarrassed of Robbie since all he did was poke fun at his friends and him, bring his own uninvited +1, and obviously he ate some of the cake. I complied and only his friends, and allowed 2 of his cousins to join as well. Luckily, some of my siblings were understanding. The only one who had an issue with this was my sister. She then called me to ask why Robbie wasn't invited, and I explained to her that Killian doesn't want him there because of what he did last year. My sister was infuriated and said that she knew we had an issue with her son's weight. Since then, she's been ranting all over Facebook, and I've been getting calls from relatives, and this entire situation has been stressing me out. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk here, clearly, but if these friends of family or family who do read this stuff on Facebook are going to take it at face value and rip OP apart for being fat-phobic or for attacking Robbie's weight, well, then OP's screwed either way. I mean, how can you argue with these people who have no desire for A, critical thinking, or B, trying to find out the truth before they go on a witch hunt for themselves? I mean, these certainly aren't the people who are out there doing their own research, I would hope. United Manor 20 commented, "Not the jerk. You don't have an issue with her son's weight, nor are you being ableist or fat-phobic. You have an issue with him bringing an uninvited guest, making comments that made your son uncomfortable, bullying your son and his friends, and last but most importantly, he ate half of his birthday cake. There was plenty of food and he wasn't starving. He's old enough to know what the word no means and he knew that he shouldn't have ate that. His behavior is why he was not invited. I would consider going low contact with your sister. I think you'll find your life much more peaceful that way." Our next story is, am I the jerk for snapping when someone rubbed my belly and implied I might be pregnant? So today, my office building was throwing a little fiesta-themed event, and they offered free lunch in the cafeteria. A bunch of us went to grab food. While I was standing in line, I opened the Nest camera app to check on something and saw a little bird that's been showing up outside every day. I laughed and casually said to no one in particular, "This bird comes to visit me every day." Right after I said that, a coworker who has made pregnancy comments toward me before came up, rubbed my belly without asking and said something like, "Maybe it's because you've got a baby bird on the way." I felt this immediate wave of rage. Like, why are we still doing this in 2025? So I said, "Don't be wishing that kind of bad luck on me." She looked super taken aback, and my boss, who overheard, also looked at me like I had just said something offensive. It felt like I was the crazy one for being upset, but I didn't ask to be touched. I'm not pregnant. And I really don't like people making those kinds of comments about my body. Now I'm wondering, am I the jerk for reacting the way I did? OP's not the jerk here. Anybody coming up and touching any part of you. I mean, let's take a step back and make it a blank template. Random coworker who I did not approve of came up and rubbed X part of my body. So tell me, what part of the body could you substitute there that would have made it okay? Because I can't picture one. Jeepers Creepers 74 commented, "Not the jerk. Your boss was just giving their initial reaction to one employee verbally snapping at the other. I wouldn't worry about that unless it's followed up with comments confirming they believe you are in the wrong. A lot was happening in the moment. I think you should follow up with an email to your boss, coworker, and HR so your feelings are clear. Namely, I want to explain why I raised my voice to coworker today, as it's usually not my style to snap at others. In the past, coworker has made many comments to me suggesting I might be or will be pregnant. I am not pregnant, and I don't appreciate such speculation about my personal life or private reproductive issues at the office. I also found it jarring when coworker rubbed my abdomen today without warning or consent, again indicating I was pregnant. I realize some may think these things are no big deal and assume others feel the same way. Thus, I want to be perfectly clear that I do not welcome the comments or the touching. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not disclosing to my housemates that my family has money and refusing to pay more monthly? Hi, this happened in Brazil, but I'm posting here so my friends don't find it. I, 23-year-old female, live with 7 other people. 2 girls and 5 boys, one of them is my boyfriend. We're all between 22 to 25. We started renting together 3 years ago when we were all in the same university and just kept doing it. We split rent and utilities equally. We're all at least friendly with each other and regularly have parties and travel together, but we're not all that close. Recently, during a party, we were all a bit drunk and were talking about funny stories from our families, and I commented that I studied in a very elite school in our city. One of the boys, Jay, 25, was very surprised because it's a very expensive school. He started asking me questions about the way I grew up and eventually just said, "Wow, you are rich." I thought that was it and we kept having fun. Well, the morning after, he started making all these jokes about me being rich and snobby, which I didn't mind, we tease each other all the time. But after like 3 days, it started annoying people. So one of the girls, Maria, 24-year-old female, told him to cut it out because he was overdoing it. This started an argument, and eventually it came out that he was uncomfortable with the revelation that my parents had money. We started talking about it. It was super awkward because it sucks having a serious conversation at breakfast, and he said that he truly felt betrayed because he thought we were all broke, and that to make things fair, I should have been making bigger contributions to the house funds. I said that I understood that he was upset, but that I couldn't really afford paying the amount he was suggesting, 1,800 Brazilian real. He insisted, and my boyfriend got involved, and eventually he just left while saying I was a liar. Well, my other 6 friends don't agree with him and think he's being a Richard, and now he's being kind of sidelined for the past week, but I can't help wondering if he's right. I never lied about how I grew up, but I knew that just the fact that both my parents have a master's meant that I grew up better off than everyone else from this group, and I kind of avoided commenting about it because I thought it was awkward. Most people knew, but apparently Jay and our other friend didn't. Am I the jerk for not paying more? OP's not the jerk. I don't know what their actual rent agreement is like. I'm assuming that they all kind of split it equally, right? Just because somebody's more well off or came from a better background, that doesn't mean that they have to automatically pay more money. I mean, they're still living in exactly the same conditions as you are, right? Intelligent Panda 33 commented, "Not the jerk. Your parents may have money, but that doesn't mean you do. You don't state if they're paying your rent, so presumably you're all in the broke early 20s phase, trying to figure it out and make it on your own." OP responded commenting, "No, they're not paying my rent." Yeah, we're exactly in that phase, but I do have a safety net of being able to return to my parents' home if necessary, and they would be able to help me out for a bit if I lost my job or something, so I guess it's a bit different from the others. Our next story is, am I the jerk for explaining to my future sister-in-law why her kids will never receive anything from us? I, 27-year-old female, have a brother, 33-year-old male, who's been dating his girlfriend Sarah for 12 years, and he proposed a couple of months ago. Sarah has 2 kids from her previous relationship, 8-year-old male and 6-year-old female. I would say that my parents and I are not very close to Sarah and her kids, but we are cordial and never had any problems before. My partner, I, bro, and Sarah attended the Easter dinner at my parents', and that's when the drama happened. Sarah's kids were at their father's, so Sarah used this celebration to confront us about my brother requesting a prenup. Basically, my brother explained to her that he expects them to sign a prenup and that only his biological kids will have the right to inherit anything from our family assets. This is something that we as a family discussed before, and we all agree that only our children should receive assets or money from our inheritance. My brother's free to pay whatever he wants for his stepchildren out of his own money, but my children and his bio children will never have to share anything that our family has with them. Sarah claimed that we're being unfair and that we're treating her and her kids like some strangers instead of embracing them like family. She said that the normal and decent thing to do was for us to see her kids like my brother's kids, who should have equal rights to any children they may have together. I told her sure. After she gets married to my brother, she will become our in-law, and her kids will be my brother's stepchildren, but this doesn't mean we have to share anything with them. I asked her, will my future kids receive anything from her parents or from their bio-father's parents? She said no, obviously. So I asked her, then why would her kids be entitled to receive anything from us? Sarah said, because they'll be our family. So I told her that we'll have plenty of cousins that are also family, but I don't go around wishing to share my inheritance with them. There was a lot more back and forth between us, and Sarah was not letting this go. My brother asked her to stop because we were there to celebrate Easter, not to have this kind of conversation, but she kept on going, saying that we needed to clarify it once and for all. I told her from where we stand, everything is clear, and it's only her who has a problem. She said we're greedy and cruel to some kids, and I snapped. I told her to deal with it. She is free to work her butt off and gather assets to leave to her children, but we will never divide anything outside of our family, and she should not expect her children to be our problem or burden to finance. I honestly feel that she's very manipulative and is using my brother for what she and her kids can get from him, but that's my brother's problem to decide if this is the kind of partner he wants. I just want to know if I was too blunt in telling her the truth. I don't think OP's the jerk here, especially when it's something that it seems all of their family are kind of aligned on. I mean, the only person pushing things here is Sarah, and it's an argument point that's completely against what everybody else here who's here to celebrate Easter is already in agreement upon. Sea Survivor 9 commented, "Since you're talking about inheritance from your parents, what you've all decided previously and all want to continue is certainly up to you. Your brother having a prenup and a detailed will is a good idea, since she brought it up and wouldn't let it drop, not the jerk. But your title is suggestive of more than that. You'll still give gifts to her kids the same as their kids if they have them, right? You're not going to be obvious they're second-class citizens, right?" OP responded commenting, "Of course, we're not monsters and we don't dislike her kids or consider them second-class citizens. Even now, when they don't have bio kids together, of course we give the kids gifts for their birthdays, Christmas, etc. What my title mentions only applies to inheritance, like assets, money, etc. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to cover my tattoos for my boyfriend's family dinner? I'm 21-year-old female, a girl who has several tattoos, some big and quite visible. My boyfriend, 26-year-old male, met me like that and I hadn't had any problems with it. He invited me to go to dinner with his family and I accepted, but he casually mentioned, "Maybe you could wear something with sleeves, just so we don't start any drama." I asked what he meant, and he said his grandparents are very old school and might not react well to my tattoos. He said he didn't want the night to be awkward. I told him I wasn't going to hide part of myself to make his family more comfortable. He said it's not about hiding, it's about respect. I told him respect goes both ways, and I shouldn't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. He got upset and said I was overreacting and making it a bigger deal than it is. I told him that I would go to the dinner, but that I wouldn't cover my tattoos. But then he asked me to please not attend, that if I was only going to be difficult, it would be better not to be there. That really rubbed me the wrong way and made me feel confused because I think maybe I did behave badly and I shouldn't have reacted so vehemently against the idea. I don't want to cause drama with his family, but I have a hard time feeling comfortable in my skin and learning to deal with the stigma people have towards me because of my tattoos. And I don't want to go back and hide again. Plus, I don't think I would be honest with his family either if I show myself as I am not. So, am I the jerk for refusing to cover my tattoos for the dinner? I don't think OP's the jerk here. Could they cover up just to make things easy? Sure. Should they have to if they don't want to? Absolutely not. They don't have to hide a single bit of who they are. High on Acrylic said, "I don't think anyone is the jerk, it just seems your values don't align on this issue. He values not rocking the boat, and you value your individual expression. There's also the expectation that if his family starts saying nasty things about you, it's his duty as the bridge between you and them to defend you and handle that conflict, which is a form of labor he might not be ready, willing, or able to do at this point. I suggest you both sit down, explain what needs are and are not being met, and find some way to honor both your perspectives. It might be that you cover your tattoos the first time you go and then don't cover them after a certain period of time, either after the first meeting or after a set number of meetings. It might mean you cover your tattoos but find some time in the night to show them and bring them up. This is the perfect thing to practice compromise and communication." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not sharing the good tea with a friend? My friend was over visiting. I offered tea. She said yes. She's not much of a tea drinker. She normally drinks cheap herbal teas, which are not actually tea anyway, and isn't picky. I, on the other hand, have a cabinet full of teas of various types, imported from around the world. I offered her a decent selection, a nice oolong, a nice white tea, a high-quality herbal, a good flavored black. She pointed at something else in the cabinet and went, "What about that one?" I hesitated and then said it's a pretty expensive pu'er I had imported and she probably wouldn't like it anyway. She said I'm being stingy and could let her taste for herself. But pu'er is a polarizing tea anyway, and this stuff is not cheap at all and it would be difficult for me to get more of this brand. I know I could make multiple cups from it, but I hadn't been planning on doing a pu'er week right now and really didn't want to waste it on someone who probably wouldn't like it anyway. She doesn't even like strong black tea. For those not in the know, my family has compared the smell of pu'er to fish and dirty socks. I like it a lot, but I understand it's not everybody's thing. Now she's being passive-aggressive at me. Am I the jerk? Am I out of pocket for saying that I feel like the friend's behavior here is almost like a childish level? Like if you go to a family member's house as a kid and you open their fridge and they've got like some sealed food container with something you've never seen before, you go, "Oh, I want that one, I want that one." They say something like, "Oh, this is our very expensive blah 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 we have set aside for us for another time." Like it kind of feels like a kid piping up like, "No, I want to eat that one." Clean Patient 8809 commented, "Not the jerk, especially since making that particular type of tea for her would mean forcing you to use or waste your whole supply in a short period of time. Weird that she wasn't happy choosing from the ones you offered." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not letting new neighbors put scaffolding on my drive for 2 weeks? Hi, a couple recently have bought the house next door to us and are having improvements done to it. The house had an extension built onto their drive, meaning they now don't have a drive and have no access to their back garden. However, there is a gate that goes into my drive, but I have blocked off, as they assume that they have access and have seen multiple people on my drive without asking me first. Last week, I saw a builder knocking at my door on the doorbell camera, but I was at work. He came around at 7:40 the next morning and said that they would need to put scaffolding on my drive to have improvements done to the roof next door. I said no, and he asked why. Firstly, it's my drive. Secondly, the new neighbors should have come around and asked rather than telling the builder to do it. He said that the man moving in had been up multiple times and tried knocking. This was a lie, as I work from home 90% of the time and can see through the doorbell camera. The couple came around the following evening and asked about it. This was the first interaction I'd had with them. However, a week prior, my partner's mom had parked outside their house to pick her and our 8-month-old daughter up. I found that a note had been put onto her windscreen saying, "Please don't block my drive." She wasn't blocking the drive, was there about 5 minutes, and was on a raised curb which is totally legal to park on. He didn't come and say anything whilst I was there, but as soon as I went back into the house, he said something to my partner and her mom. My main issues are that they've assumed that they can use my property, didn't ask themselves and got a builder to do it, lied about coming up and knocking on the door saying that we weren't in, and now wants my drive for 2 weeks when we can't park outside their house for 5 minutes, not blocking the driveway which had been extended. I know that through the ANLA Act that for urgent and essential repairs they can use someone's drive. However, does this apply when they've bought a house that has voluntarily blocked their drive off? Furthermore, the house was up for 270,000 British pounds and they offered 266,000. I'm pretty sure if the roof needed to be replaced urgently, it would have been a lot cheaper than this. Thanks. So, I don't necessarily think OP's the jerk here, but I feel like the one thing I do have to contend with is OP's assertion that the neighbors are terrible people specifically for letting the builders ask. I mean, if things do seem a little contentious between neighbors, are you a jerk for letting the builder, the landscaper, the fencer, whoever come over and have that discussion on whether or not it's okay themselves? Like, to be honest, I have relatives who have terrible neighbors. I wouldn't think less of them if they were more than happy to let the builder ask if they could get that property access. Outside Looking In 641 commented, "Not the jerk. With a smile, explain you have a little one, and when little one's picked up, parked on the street, some jerk put a rude note on mother-in-law's window. You don't know who it was, so you don't annoy that person again, you need your drive. So sorry, can't be of any help." All with a smile, of course. Our next story is, am I the jerk for publicly shaming 2 elderly neighbors and filing a lawsuit against them? So I, male, 30s, live in a mid-sized apartment building with a pretty standard setup. There's a building council that oversees maintenance, budget, admin stuff, etc. Everything went relatively smooth until 2 elderly neighbors, let's call them Mike and Maud, both in their 60s to 70s, decided to make the building their personal chessboard. Mike and Maud got themselves voted onto the council this year, but not exactly by the book. They took over the annual assembly as president and secretary of the session, despite not being neutral parties, changed the voting rules mid-meeting, and ignored every objection that didn't suit them. The official minutes that came out later, full of omissions and lies, including a claim that the vote for the council, which they now sat on, was unanimous. Spoiler, it wasn't. I was the only one actually voted in through real consensus. Since then, they've overstepped their role over and over, publishing official documents before they were even registered with local authorities. acting on behalf of the building without authorization, and most recently, trying to get me to sign off on a contract as a council without even involving the building's administrator. That's illegal where we live. Earlier this year, Mike made a completely false claim that the community could be subject to asset seizures due to a pending labor lawsuit. Again, not how the law works. I'm fairly certain that that was meant to scare everyone into letting them settle things without review or transparency. I tried to handle things quietly. I've been patient. I've offered peaceful ways out. But now, I've filed a lawsuit to challenge the legitimacy of the assembly minutes and their actions. I'm also preparing a full public report to the community detailing everything, and yeah, it names names. I've been told I'm being petty or cruel, that they're elderly and maybe didn't mean harm, but at some point, not meaning harm still leads to serious consequences. They've lied, manipulated, and acted like they were above oversight. The community deserves the full truth. Am I the jerk for going full transparency mode and dragging them publicly and legally after trying to keep things civil for months? This whole thing isn't some minor inconvenience to anybody that's in that building. I mean, it can ultimately affect the livelihoods of people here, right? I mean, when this kind of stuff starts happening to leadership and you see maybe corruption is a bit far to say, but really underhanded stuff and misappropriated stuff, I mean, it's kind of the right thing to fight back, right? OP was voted into the council. Maybe it's not one of their expected duties to point out this stuff, but I would hope somebody that I vote on, even if it's an apartment building council, would have enough honesty to expose this kind of stuff. You know, protect the people that voted you in. Aurora Mendez commented, "Not the jerk. This isn't about being mean to elderly folks, it's about protecting your entire building community from serious legal and financial risks. They deliberately twisted rules, falsified official records, and spread bold misinformation. You tried peaceful solutions first and documented everything. Someone has to stand firm when community trust gets trampled like this." Our next story is, am I the jerk for objecting to buying expensive painting supplies for my godson? My 37, husband 38 and I are currently looking after my godson 15 since my best friend and her husband are in rehab. He is very interested in art and requested Raphael brushes with some synthetic squirrel hair pelt thingy along with Arches paper. Now, it's easily within our budget, especially considering that the kid doesn't have any other hobbies. My husband bought the stuff for him, but I wasn't happy and told him not to get any more expensive supplies since he can use cheaper brands, and it can teach him the value of money. But my husband said that it's a good thing that he's coping with this situation through art rather than unhealthy means, and that we should encourage him to pursue painting since he really enjoys and is good at it, and he is good. Am I being too cheap? So, I think this is one of those situations where when you especially say it's well within our budget. You know, it's smart to be frugal and spend wisely, but you just overlook it in a case like this. I'm firmly with the husband here, and I do think OP's the jerk. You encourage the kid to pursue that passion. Could you buy the $10 synthetic rubber basketball for your aspiring athlete? Sure. But when you turn around and say, oh, it's well within your budget, you can afford the authentic actual NBA ball, wouldn't you want to empower and inspire the kid further? Kuroku Menu commented, "You're the jerk. While learning the value of money is important, you say you can easily afford it, especially as this is his only hobby. He's good at painting, so the supplies aren't going to be wasted or not appreciated. Good brushes, paper, and paints will make a difference. I kind of suspect that you wouldn't deliberately be stingy with, say, sports equipment, but would get him decent stuff so he can play well without thinking too deeply about it. I could be wrong though. I'd say to think of this in context. If he's already going through a difficult time, then why not let this be the silver lining to the cloud he's in? Let something be good in his life and not crappy? If he were a pampered prince who has never known hardship and is entitled, then your way might be appropriate. But it sounds like you're taking him in because his family situation is difficult. Perhaps in the context he's actually just letting him have this one area of his life be good is fine and healthy. Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking my daughter out of school for a week for a vacation? I, male 39, have a daughter, 10, K, from my previous relationship. I also have a daughter, 18 months, with my wife now. My wife is mom to K. I don't want to get into it, but Kay's bio mom is not a part of her life. I go on business trips for work around 3 to 4 times a year. In a week, I'm going to Florida. My wife and I decided to make this one a trip for our family. We figured it would be perfect staying in a resort with pools and things to do for my wife and daughters while I work, then in the evening we can do stuff together. Of course, Kay will have to miss a week of school. We're getting her schoolwork for the week so she can work on it while gone. Yesterday, I was talking on the phone with my mom. I had told her about my business trip and how my wife and daughters were going. She mentioned something about Kay staying with her. I asked what she was talking about. She said Kay has to stay with her since we'll be gone for a week. I told her no, Kay's coming with. She argued that she has school. I told her it's a trip and memories she'll always remember, unlike a 4th grade spelling test. My mom got really upset with me, said it's not good to let Kay miss so much school. The only other time she missed school this year was 2 sick days. I don't think it's smart to constantly let her miss school, but going on a trip with her family and missing a little school isn't the end of the world. My mom said that I'm setting Kay up for failure. I told her it's the 4th grade. Plus, she would feel so left out if everyone went but her. My mom called me the jerk and said I'm not the son she raised. I've been wondering if maybe it isn't the best idea. Am I the jerk? Hope he's not the jerk here. Listen, growing up, I was the kid that was always at school. I hardly ever missed a day, and if I did, it was one of those almost like school-sanctioned events like senior skip day, or more obviously, sick days or like family emergencies, things like that. I honestly feel like OP went above what a lot of parents would even do in making sure that they get homework for that week. Honestly, I feel like a lot of parents would just take their kid out of school for the week and just deal with the ramifications. Just Let Me Read commented, "Not the jerk. I work for a school and I'm saying this. There is a lot of value in a family trip, and your daughter has done incredible with attendance this year. She deserves a special trip. You're right, she won't forget this. The one thing I would say is make sure she isn't missing out on any important testing, as a lot of schools do state testing around this time. If she is, you want to make sure she can make it up. I find that family trips like this can be their own important learning experience. She'll see a new place and have a lot of new events. This is important for development just as school is. Your mom is not her parent and needs to trust you to make the right choices for your daughter. Tell her kindly or not kindly if you want to butt out." Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to do house chores after my mom said only girls should do them? So I, 22-year-old female, live at home with my parents and siblings, including my brothers, 23-year-old male, 21-year-old male, and 18-year-old male, and my younger sister. The house needed a deep clean, and I suggested that it would be faster and fairer if everyone pitched in, not just the girls. My mom actually agreed at first and said, "That sounds like a good idea." I was actually surprised and thought we were all on the same page. But then she told me to start vacuuming all the carpets and told my sister to do some other chores around the house. We got to work, but I started wondering when my brothers were going to be called in to help. They were just playing video games in the other room the whole time. I asked her about it and she basically told me to be quiet and just do the work. When I said that it didn't feel fair that she was only making the girls do the chores, she got mad and said something like, "Never in my life have I seen a girl act like this. Aren't you embarrassed?" I reminded her that she agreed the boys should help too, and she responded, "I never said we would actually do that. They're boys. You and your sister are girls. This is your job." To give some context, my family believes that men should work outside and women should do the inside work. My brothers are adults now, but they don't have jobs and aren't expected to do either the man jobs or women jobs. They're free to sit around and play video games and don't have to help anyone, while my sister and I do all the work. I even tried to ask my dad to step in, but he just ignored me and kind of mocked me. At this point, I've stopped doing the chores out of protest. My mom is now really angry at me and thinks I'm being disrespectful and lazy. I feel like I'm just standing up for what's fair, but part of me wonders if I'm being a jerk by refusing to help now. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Golly gee, I sure do love life here in the 40s. Sorry, wait, what's that you say? It's 80 years later? Oh, well, good thing the value's still stuck around. OP's not the jerk in my eyes. Extra Chocolate 1819 commented, "Not the jerk, it's just blatant sexism, but I'm curious if this is just becoming an issue, or have your brothers always been excused from doing work?" Our next story is, am I the jerk for ditching lunch with friends because one of them brought a dog? So some people in my friend group and I met up at a restaurant for lunch the other day. It was a newer place and looked kinda interesting, so we wanted to try it out. One friend was a bit late and ended up arriving last, and she had her dog with her. For some context, I have trauma related to dogs and being bitten as a kid, and to this day, I get very anxious and scared around dogs, even smaller ones. I told my friend this when I found out she was a dog person and owned two, and we've always organized things so that I pretty much wouldn't be around them. I've always appreciated her respecting my boundaries and making an effort to make me comfortable, but yeah, that day she came to lunch with a very large dog. Can't give details on what breed, I barely know anything about that stuff, sorry. And as soon as I saw it, I felt so uneasy. We had a table outside the restaurant so the dog would be next to us the whole time we ate, and that thought really made me panic. Another friend noticed that I was very on edge and asked if I was fine. I told him I was sorry and I had to leave. He made the connection with the dog and said it was totally fine and he understood. I told everyone bye and left. I hadn't ordered yet. Everyone seemed chill about me leaving, but later on I got a text from my friend, the dog owner, telling me she felt really disappointed that I ditched them just because she had brought her dog. She said I overreacted, that she understands I get stressed, but that the dog is well trained and well mannered, and I wouldn't have even noticed it being there after a while. She said that overall my reaction seemed over the top and disrespectful. Now, I'm not sure. Like, of course, I don't blame her for bringing her dog, that's a me problem. She shouldn't always have to accommodate me. Maybe I should have tried to tolerate it and tried to forget it was there. I don't know. I thought me leaving was fine, but I'm worried I might have actually offended her in some way. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here, I just think it's unfair for their friend to try to force them to face their fears on the friend's terms. Everything seemed completely fine with what happened, but then after the fact, the friend to say, "Oh, I really feel disrespected here." Like, I just don't get it. White Person Grimace commented, "Not the jerk, your friend is being unreasonable. You didn't scream or otherwise make a scene, and you didn't insist that she leave and take her dog with her. You took responsibility for your own trauma and politely excused yourself from a situation that was untenable for you. I don't know if your friend was being thoughtless or playing some kind of weird game of chicken with you, but either one is a pretty bad look. And then to message you afterwards about disrespect? That's hypocritical to the max." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling a guy at my gym he's a creep and needs to change somewhere else? At the gym I go to, the men's and women's locker room entrances are side by side. The women's door stays shut, but typically the men's stay open simply because the actual changing area is tucked away. There are lockers by the door, but no one uses them because they're far from where people change, and people can easily see you if you use those front lockers and the door is open. There is one guy I see most days that changes, gets fully naked, and uses the lockers by the door. He's the only person I've ever seen use those lockers, and obviously the only person I've seen change there. I've never cared too much, just thought he was weird. Until yesterday, my girlfriend told me as she was entering the women's locker room, she made eye contact with that guy since the door was open and he was practically standing in the doorway. Technically in the locker room, yes. He was fully bare and smiled and waved at her. I immediately went to the locker room and got pretty ticked at him and told him to stop using those freaking lockers, you creep. We exchanged some words, but boiled down to him saying that he can change wherever and me saying, yes, but why in front of the door? He then reported me. I was told he has been brought to their attention before, but since he's at the locker and in the locker room, they can't really tell him to stop, and that I should just let it be and there's no reason to be angry. One detail, this is in a European country that is fine with nudity, so am I. But not when he's basically just flashing women going into their space. So my question is, am I the jerk for calling this guy out? OP's not the jerk here, but the thing is, they've been told about this guy before. If OP continues to confront this guy and berate him, would they actually long-term side with this guy who's bearing all in front of the women just trying to get to the locker room, rather than, just deal with the issue? How about close the doors? Cryptographer Full 581 commented, not the jerk. The creep found a loophole to being a creep. Management knows why he uses that locker, and a culturally neutral position on nudity doesn't change the fact that he shouldn't have to experience someone's naked body without consent. Those women are not consenting to seeing him in a state of undress. Him acknowledging the women who see him by smiling and waving shows that he does it on purpose. When you go to a nude beach or a sauna or any space where nudity is expected and clearly advertised, you're consenting to seeing nudity. By the nature of having gendered locker rooms, seeing the nudity of the opposite is not advertised or expected. Those women coming out of the dressing room did not consent to seeing this man's bare you-know-what. It's gross behavior, and you're right to call it into question. Confronting him and gym management didn't work. Time to be a bit more stealth. Start mentioning his behavior to other gym goers out of concern. Not disgust, concern. I would bring up the consent argument I did above when explaining your discomfort. I would encourage your girlfriend to do the same. Have her tell women to always cover their eyes when they leave the dressing room if that man is in the building. Heck, if possible, have a sign made up to put in the ladies' dressing room. It can't be bullying if he doesn't see it. Warn people away from him. People will shun him on their own. He will feel discomforted by everyone being aware of his machinations, and he will lose his victim pool if women start making it impossible for him to see their reactions to him, or make it so they don't see him at all. I know, gossip bad, but the reality here is that this man is victimizing the women at this gym. Gossip helps these women from becoming victims of this man's weird fetish. Gossip will bring about a form of justice that being straightforward will not. And is it really bad gossip if it's true? Our next story is, am I the jerk for not giving up my usual study spot to a fourth year just because she asked? I, 18-year-old female, am a first-year med student. I usually study at this quiet cafe near campus. It's small and it has free Wi-Fi, and I like it. I've been going there pretty consistently for a while now, and I usually take this seat tucked in the corner with a power outlet underneath the table. My laptop's really old and it dies a lot, so I kind of just constantly have it plugged in. A few days ago, I was in the cafe doing some flashcards while my laptop charged when a student I don't even know came up and asked me to move because that's her spot during test weeks. Which, first of all, I've literally never seen her there before. And second of all, it's a cafe. It's first come, first served. There's no reserved seats. I already had all my things out on the table, all my pencils, papers, etc. So it would have taken me a while to pack them up and move. So I told her that, sorry, but I was already sitting here, and that there were a lot of other spots with power outlets if that's what she was looking for. She got passive-aggressive and said, "It's just a chair, don't be so territorial." I said, yeah, it's just a chair. There's a bunch of other chairs that are exactly the same as this chair. I'm not moving all my stuff. She kind of just stood there for a couple of minutes and stared at me, hanging around really awkwardly. I'm pretty sure she was trying to make me uncomfortable on purpose in hopes that I would leave, like she was still waiting for me to move. But I just ignored her, and after a few minutes, she left. She was really huffy and called me a not-so-nice name. Later, I asked one of my friends who's a fourth year, one of my older sister's friends, if they knew who she was, and they said that they did. She said that she's also a fourth year, and that she's known for giving freshmen a hard time. She just likes picking on first years apparently, and most of them do exactly what she wants. So she's probably not used to hearing first years tell her no. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I just didn't think it made sense to move when I was there first, and my things are out on the table when there were plenty of seats that are pretty much exactly the same that were empty. Still, I don't know. Maybe I should have just moved because she's older than me out of respect, or even just to avoid conflict. I didn't really think it was that big of a deal though. So, am I the jerk? No, I think OP's absolutely right. It really wasn't that big of a deal. This person should have dealt with it, moved to one of the many other available seats. I think it was just reverting to childhood behavior. I want what you have, and only because you have it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving to have my break in another room when someone else walked into the one I was already in? Okay, so for some context, my workplace has 4 small break rooms. We're allowed to take our breaks whenever we want, and because we don't have a lot of employees at the moment, most of the time when I take my break, no one else is present in any of the rooms. I prefer the quiet since being yelled at by customers constantly gives me quite the headache. And I'm pretty introverted normally, so I quite enjoy break time. The break room I prefer to use is labeled as Room A, and it's where my and a few others' lockers are located. Okay, now I was enjoying my break as normal, and my coworker Selly walked in to grab something from their locker. Shortly after, their phone rang and they took the call. They were in this call for only 2 minutes, and it didn't sound like they were gonna end it anytime soon, so I moved to break room B. This wasn't out of malice or anything, I just liked my peace and quiet. The next day, I noticed the sticky note that labeled my locker was missing. I assumed it fell off, put a new one on it, and went to start my day. Break time hits, and there's someone in room A, so I go to room B, and that's when I found my old sticky note on a random unused locker. I was confused and asked the guy that was in room A if he knew who had moved it and why. He said, "Oh, Sally moved it because he thought you were going to move lockers anyway." This answer was very confusing, so I went and found Sally to ask him myself if he was the one who moved it and why. After I asked, he said, "Oh, I thought you wanted a room to yourself since you so rudely left room A when I walked in for only a moment." I told him that me leaving had nothing to do with him and that I just liked the quiet. But his response was something like, "Well, now you can have all the peace and quiet you want," and got into his car before I could respond. He seemed really mad, and honestly, I just want to know if I really did do something wrong. I don't always catch if I'm being rude, so maybe I really am the jerk here? Thus, I wrote this post to find out. As a fellow introvert that enjoys their peace and quiet, I would have done probably the exact same thing OP did, or very awkwardly maybe sat through it and hoped that they wouldn't talk to me after their call anyways. OP didn't do anything wrong here. Who's actually arguing that OP did something offensive? Castle Elsinore commented, "Not the jerk. It's more rude to listen in on someone's phone conversation. Plus, the other person should have found an empty room to take the call in instead of intruding on you." The post-it is just petty. It's not a call HR, but I would note down the time, date, and incident in case it escalates. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my coworker that she's falling for a romance scam and now she's upset? My friend, let's call her N and I worked together for 3 to 4 years at a hair salon. N is early 30s, kind of an airhead, gullible, but a really nice and kind person. She's currently in a relationship with this guy for about 6 months. He lives in New York, we're in the Midwest. They talk on the phone all the time. He's been out here a couple of times to visit. We've never met, but heard a lot about their relationship. This morning, she texted me at 6 a.m. asking to borrow $10,000 because her boyfriend's mom had a family emergency and needs the money soon. She said he's working on an offshore oil rig in Dubai for 2 months and couldn't transfer the money until he's come back to the state. She doesn't have the money, so she asked if I can ask my relatives for the $10,000 for her. I told her that this sounds like a romance scam and that if he's asking her for such a big amount of money like that early in their relationship, it's a red flag and she should reconsider. I told her that since I don't know her boyfriend that well and if he ghosts her, either me or her will be on the hook for the $10,000. Now she won't answer my texts or calls. She also took a personal day from work today. Am I the jerk? Should I have kept my mouth shut and mind my own business? OP's not the jerk here, but I fear for that coworker, somebody that is that far gone that is willingly considering that $10,000 donation, even when it comes at the cost of asking a coworker if they can ask their family? I mean, I can't even imagine how far gone you have to be to do such a thing. Savings Rhubarb 8746 commented, "Not the jerk. That's a classic scam scenario. And in any case, she shouldn't be trying to borrow such a large sum of money from you and your relatives even for herself, much less for a total stranger who sounds nice online. It's a good thing that you warned her. I suppose you might have added links to some reliable sources on scams too, if you had had the chance. Now you can only hope that she comes to a sensible conclusion while isolating herself from you and taking time off work. I hope to think and do research." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not cleaning before guests came over because I was tired? I usually do a majority of the chores in my house. My husband helps with laundry and sometimes vacuums, but that's pretty much it. I usually don't mind because things get done at my pace. If something bothers him, he cleans it, and he's generally appreciative of what I do. And if I ask for help, he will help. Lately, he's been having his friends over after work. He works second shift, so I'm asleep by the time this happens. In the past, if he mentioned having people over, I would clean. But a couple days ago, he mentioned people would be coming over, and it was a couple of hours before I was going to sleep. The last few weeks have been very stressful for me, and I haven't been cleaning as much as I usually do. I just didn't have it in me to clean much before they came over. I was tired. I just cleaned up the dishes from dinner and took out the trash, but didn't have the energy to do more. Then I went to sleep. I woke up and he was not in bed. I had some text messages from him saying how it was embarrassing having people over at the house because it wasn't cleaned. He says it was disrespectful to him and his friends because I knew they were coming but didn't fully clean up. I talked to him about it later that day and he said the same points again. He said I had a couple of hours before bed and I should have at least vacuumed, mopped, and picked things up. I told him I was too tired to do that, and if he wants to have me do all the cleaning, then he needs to accept it'll be done at my pace and depending on what time, energy, and motivation I have. I don't mind doing it, but it's on my schedule. That's the price of the arrangement. He thinks I was being spiteful by not cleaning more, and that I'm being rude by my comment on our arrangement. But I just didn't have the energy for more cleaning. Am I the jerk for not cleaning before bed, knowing my husband would have friends over? OP is not the jerk here. Like OP said, it's the arrangement. If they're being made to do all of the chores, they'll get it done when they can get it done. Panine Ultimate 9 commented, "Sounds like you do more housework because either 1, you work 1 shift and he works 2 shifts, he works double, or 2, you don't work, but he told you a couple of hours before people came. Too short notice, not the jerk." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.